Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're totally decoding the architecture of wealth. We're going to unpack exactly why the rich just seem to effortlessly keep getting richer, and more importantly, how you can make that absolutely crucial jump from a fragile earning mindset to a bulletproof owning mindset. Let's get right into it.
So let's start with a really frustrating trap that catches way too many successful professionals. Why doesn't a massive salary automatically equal actual wealth? You know the type, right? Senior executives, specialized surgeons pulling in $500,000 a year, driving the luxury cars, living in those massive homes. They look rich, but if you actually peek behind the curtain at their giant mortgages and auto loans, well, their balance sheets tell a wildly different story. They're actually incredibly financially fragile.
Which brings us to part one, the math of capitalism.
To really get why this wealth gap happens, we have to look at a fundamental objective rule of market economies. It was brought to prominence by the economist Thomas Piketty, and it's simply this: R is greater than G. Basically, this means the rate of return on capital, things like profits, dividends, interest, and rents, is consistently greater than G, which is the overall rate of economic growth and, by extension, wage growth.
And hey, this isn't just some abstract economic theory. Researchers have literally compiled over 150 years of data spanning 16 advanced countries, and it objectively proves this rule. Outside of the sheer destruction of the two world wars, during peacetime, R has always exceeded G. So what does this actually mean for you? It's pretty simple. Owning assets pays significantly more over time than working for a wage ever will.
Moving right along to part two, income is not wealth.
Okay, so if the math definitively proves that owning is way superior, why do so many super smart high earners get stuck? Well, it usually comes down to a fundamental misunderstanding. Income and wealth are just not the same thing. Think of income like water blasting out of a hose into a narrow channel. It's fast, it's highly visible, but it disappears almost instantly. And it only lasts exactly as long as your career does. Wealth, on the other hand, that's a reservoir. It's the massive pool of productive assets you actively build to capture and hold that water. See, income depends entirely on you physically showing up. Wealth earns money for you whether you go to work that day or not.
But honestly, getting from the hose to the reservoir is incredibly tough because, well, our own brains constantly get in the way. Cognitive biases literally distort our financial reality. For instance, we suffer from loss aversion, which means we'll stubbornly hold on to a losing stock just because actually hitting that sell button makes the loss feel real. Or we succumb to herd behavior, like buying into a massive crypto bubble right at the peak just because, our neighbors are bragging about it. These psychological blind spots make us deviate from rational thinking and lead straight to emotionally driven money mistakes.
Let's look at how to fix that in part three, the power of leverage.
To escape the time for money loop and those psychological traps we just talked about, wealthy folks utilize the ultimate architecture of scale, leverage. Now, most of us grew up being taught that absolutely all debt is bad, but there is a massive, game-changing difference between unproductive debt and productive debt. Unproductive debt is borrowing money for stuff that goes down in value, like a new car or a lavish vacation. Productive debt, though, that finances income-generating assets. Think about it this way. You could buy a $100,000 asset in cash. If it goes up 10%, cool, you made 10 grand. But if you use that same 100,000 as a 20% deposit to control a $500,000 property, that exact same 10% appreciation suddenly yields $50,000. You've literally multiplied your returns immensely.
But wait, leverage isn't just about debt. The entrepreneur Naval Ravikant breaks leverage down into four really specific categories that multiply your output: labor, capital, code, and media. So labor is having people work for you. Capital is having money work for you. Those have been around forever, but the 21st century handed us two entirely new explosive forms of leverage: code and media.
And this distinction is absolutely critical to understand. Labor and capital, they're permissioned leverage, meaning someone actually has to agree to work for you or a bank has to agree to fund you. But code and media, they are completely permissionless. You don't need anyone's approval at all to write a software app or record a video right in your bedroom that could reach millions of people. They scale exponentially with basically zero marginal cost, which makes them hands down the most powerful wealth-building tools of our time.
Which leads perfectly into part four, mastering compound growth.
Okay, so once you actually have these leveraged assets working for you, your focus has to shift entirely to protecting them. We all know compounding is this incredible snowball effect, right? Growth just naturally generates more growth. But the harsh, undeniable truth is that losses are the absolute Achilles heel of compounding. Everyday market swings and large drawdowns act exactly like water damage in a house, slowly, silently eroding the very foundation of your investment returns. In finance, we call this volatility drag.
And this right here showcases the brutal asymmetry of math. If your portfolio loses 10%, you need an 11.1% gain just to get back to zero. Sure, doable, but if you suffer a massive 50% drawdown, you don't just need 50% to recover. Actually, scratch that. You need a massive 100% gain just to break even. This math perfectly illustrates why the wealthiest investors prioritize avoiding huge drawdowns way more than they care about chasing extreme highs.
Because of how brutal that math is, the wealthy focus obsessively on avoiding what's called fat tail risk. If you look at any distribution of market returns, that extreme long tail on the left side represents the rare, truly catastrophic losses. It might seem a little counterintuitive at first, but taking a smoother, less volatile ride actually speeds up your compound growth over a decade far more than riding a roller coaster of wildly swinging highs and lows.
There's a great quote that summarizes this math beautifully. Minimizing losses is more important to the ultimate success of an investment plan than maximizing gains. It really is that simple. Getting out of your own way, completely bypassing those cognitive biases we talked about earlier, and just not panic selling during sudden market drops is mathematically proven to generate far superior long-term wealth.
And that brings us to our final section, Part 5, the final flywheel.
So, all of these principles we've covered, understanding the macro math, utilizing permissionless leverage, and fiercely protecting your compound growth, they all culminate in the ultimate endgame, a self-sustaining financial flywheel. But getting to that point, it requires one final, really deep psychological shift. Generating true passive income means you have to let go of control. You have to stop trying to exchange your personal time for dollars, and instead start fully trusting systems, capital, and your productive assets to do all the heavy lifting for you. It's about moving from effort-based income to asset-based income. The goal here isn't to just be lazy. The goal is buying back your time so you can work entirely by choice rather than necessity.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a crucial question to reflect on. Take a really hard look at your own financial balance sheet and ask yourself this: what is the true ratio of your active income to your passive income? Are you merely earning a living, stuck on that endless time for money treadmill? Or are you actively building a deep reservoir of wealth that goes to work for you every single night while you sleep? Keep building, my friends, and let's make that shift from earning to owning.